How's it going, everybody? And after another great weekend of college football, I think the only appropriate thing to be said is it's 2020. I think that's all we can say. After another crazy Saturday of top 10 close matchups, top 5 upset with Florida going down, just another crazy weekend of college football. Bama being just ripped to shreds. Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss having just a masterpiece of an offensive game plan and just ripping an Alabama defense apart. As an Alabama fan, like I've rarely seen before. Other than Tom Herman for Ohio State in the 2014 Sugar Bowl, 2015 Sugar Bowl, 2014 regular season. But rarely ever have I seen Alabama defense, especially under Saban, just ripped apart like that. Over 650 yards of total offense for Ole Miss. Um, that was crazy. What's even crazier, Alabama had over 730 total yards of offense. So, um, whatever Ole Miss tried, and believe me, they hit just about everything. They threw every punch that you could throw at Alabama. And Alabama answered. I mean, to their credit, Alabama's defense played about as piss poor as you could. And for them to still walk out of Oxford 3 and 0, it does say something. I don't know what it says, but they're 3 and 0 and they're still undefeated. And they still outgained their opponent by almost 70 yards, despite giving up 650. Uh, Mac Jones, 28 of 32, 700 and 417 yards passing, only 2 touchdowns. Najee Harris, 200 yards rushing. And I wasn't even trying to dive into this game, but apparently, just we'll go where it takes us. How about that? So, apparently, since I've already halfway gone over my spiel, let's get over here. But yeah, I mean, let's see. I want to make sure I get Najee's number right. Yeah, 23 carries, 206 yards, and 5 touchdowns from Najee Harris. Brian Robinson Jr. Had 10 carries for 75 yards. Just a offensive juggernaut day. I mean, it looked more like a Big 12 game than it did an SEC game. Um, Frankly, as a fan, my nerves are shot still. They haven't recovered because you keep expecting, okay, when are we not going to score? When can we not match them? And luckily, it was Ole Miss that really shot themselves in the foot. Alabama, I don't think really did anything to stop Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss really beat themselves, um, shot themselves in the foot. Um, so they helped Alabama out more than Alabama did anything. But all that matters on the scoreboard is that Alabama's 3 and 0. They win 63 to 48, but I give credit where credit's due, and Lane Kiffin just had a masterpiece. And hats off to his players because he may have had a beautiful game plan, but Matt Carroll and those guys went out and executed it. And it's not easy um, to do it against a team with Alabama's talent, and Ole Miss did. Matt Carroll was just offensive, is what he was. I mean, it was offensive what he did to our secondary. We could not. I mean, it seemed like we would get Alabama would get Ole Miss in third and long, and or especially it would be like 2nd and 22, and either he would scramble to get it third and manageable, third and short, or he would do a little dump pass. I mean, it didn't matter. he made it to where it was manageable. Or if it was 3rd and long, they'd get it to 4th and short, and Lane Kiffin wouldn't blink an eye. He knew we're going for it. They'd line up, get the first down. No hesitation. Lane Kiffin knew what he was doing, and he had Alabama Pete Golding on their toes. Which makes me wonder if Pete Golding does not get his stuff together. In 2018, we had excuses for injuries. In 2019, we had youth and injuries. But I know there's youth in the secondary, but come on. We can't keep giving up points like this. That's just not the Bama standard. And I know I'm speaking more as a Bama fan right now. But, got my Bama hat on right now. I'll take it off here in a second. Figuratively, I'm leaving the hat on, sorry. Or you're welcome. Might be the case, actually. You take one look at this hat hair, you'd understand. But, the way they, Lane Kiffin knew what defense we were coming with, and he knew how to strategically just pick us apart, and he did a great job at it. But either way, we were able to outscore the Rebs, and we get the victory, 63-48. Like I said, still gasping for air, but Alabama is 3-0, and now we move to Georgia, who beat 14th ranked Tennessee 44-21. The Bulldogs dominated Tennessee in the second half. Tennessee actually led 21-17 at halftime, and Georgia just come out in the second half and eat them up. Georgia's one of those teams. They kind of sleepwalk a little bit, and then when they get good, woke up and pissed off, they'll eat you alive. And Tennessee fired them up, made them mad, made that defense mad, made that offensive line mad, and Tennessee paid for it in the second half, getting outscored 27-0 as Georgia outscored them 27-0 to get the 44-21 win. I think Stetson Bennett had 240-something yards and 2 touchdowns. Just another solid day for him. I think Georgia had about 450 total yards. They held Tennessee to 1 yard rushing in the game, or negative 1 yard rushing, something like that. It was abysmal, which is what Georgia wants to do. If they can make you throw, not allow you to run, then Georgia's done their part. And I've got a feeling that's what they're going to try to do next week in Bryant-Denny Stadium. But we'll talk more about that next week. But that's going to be an absolutely huge matchup. The only big game on the table for next week, as far as ranked matchups go, should be number 2 Alabama and number 3 Georgia. But let's move on and let's go ahead and get some of these other scores out of the way. Let's see, we've got Florida State and Notre Dame. Notre Dame, a little sluggish at first, but they would go on to get Florida State. Notre Dame wins 42-26. Auburn, Gus Malzahn is thanking the Gus bus. They got lucky that it was called a whatever that last play was. I kind of understand where the officials were coming from. You couldn't call it a fumble because no players, Arkansas didn't recover it. So even if they had called it a fumble, I mean, they couldn't just throw the ball out there and say, dive on it. So, I mean, I don't know why the Arkansas coach was complaining. I don't know what he expected the referees to do about it. It was called a dead ball. They called intentional grounding. They got the loss of down in the 10-second runoff, which actually helped Auburn. So you would have thought he might have declined the penalty if possible. But either way, Auburn skates by after playing rough, and Arkansas looking tough. They shocked, beat Mississippi State last week, and play Auburn tough on the road. Almost pulling off back-to-back on the road upsets. That would have been something for the Suey Hogs, but they fall up short as Auburn does get the win, 30-28, and so Malzahn is safe as for right now. They're not dragging him out of his house just yet on the Plains. BYU gets 27-20 win over Texas San Antonio. LSU loses on the road to Missouri. It was supposed to be a game in Baton Rouge. They had to move it to Missouri due to Hurricane Delta, and LSU and their defense fared about as well as Alabama's. The only difference is Alabama was able to get the win. LSU was stopped. Missouri held a goal line stand, and they would get the win 45-41 against the Tigers. Iowa State would beat Texas Tech 31-15. South Carolina would beat Vandy 41-7. NC State would beat Virginia 38-21. Duke gets Syracuse 38-24. Kansas State gets TCU 21-14. Boston College beats Pittsburgh 31-30. Kentucky beats Mississippi State. Now, Mississippi State went on the road and absolutely torched LSU. All we heard after the first week of SEC play was how Mike Leach and Mississippi State and Costello were just going to dominate the SEC. They go on the road to Commonwealth Stadium in Kentucky. Kentucky handles them 24-2. Enough said. It's 2020. That's all. Another shocker. Army 14, Citadel 9. Okay. Troy 37, Texas State 17, BYU 27, and Texas San Antonio 20. So now we'll move on to our bigger games. Where are ya? All right. North Carolina, Virginia Tech, a huge win for Mac Brown and North Carolina getting the win over Virginia Tech. They had lost 4 in a row to the Hokies. They had also lost 7 straight to ranked opponents. Finally, Mac Brown has just came into Chapel Hill and just completely upended that atmosphere, and what he's done in such a short amount of time has really been incredible. And you've always thought of North Carolina football as a sleeping giant, and he kind of nipped at it a little bit before he left to take the Texas job in the late 90s. But wow, I mean, they racked up 399 yards rushing on the ground against the Hokies. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. I think it's choking me a little bit. They racked up over 399 yards. Michael Carter was 17 of 21. Had 17 carries, 214 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Javonte Williams had 20 carries, 169 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And Sam Howell, 18 of 23, 257 yards passing with 3 touchdowns of his own. They had over 656 yards of total offense. So what a game for North Carolina. They jumped out 21-0 on the Hokies. The Hokies would, bounce back, make it 21-14, and that's about as close as they would get. North Carolina would jump up; they'd make it 42-17. Virginia Tech would nip at their heels a little bit, but never really get closer than 2 touchdowns till the end of the game, and North Carolina would get the win, 56-45. Oh man! Then now we've got really the big ranked matchup of the day: number 1 Clemson and number 7 Miami. And if you're a Miami fan, I do apologize because it was rather disappointing. Clemson, to me, was the most impressive team Saturday. They dominated this game through and through. They didn't let Miami hang around. I never felt like Miami had a chance. It was pretty much Clemson, as usual. Clemson always does this. Dabo Swinney always, plays, oh, yeah, we're just little old Clemson. We're just little old Clemson here. We won 100 straight games in Death Valley, but we're just little old Clemson. Yeah, right, Dabo. Try convincing somebody else of that crap. But, look, you've got Derek King was just shut down. He was 12 of 28, 121 yards, and 2 picks. He did have 84 yards rushing and a touchdown, but Clemson outgained Miami 550 to 210 total yards. A lot of that was in the first half. And even though it was 21-10 at half, the game felt a lot worse than that. You knew Miami they weren't gonna win. Clemson had pretty much been up 21-3, and they were kind of on cruise control. You were just waiting for that big onslaught to happen, for Miami to make their mistakes and Clemson to capitalize quickly, and that's really what you're waiting on, and that's what happened. And Clemson just flared out the scoreboard, but the game was really over a lot quicker than the 4 touchdowns make it look. Let's see. Trevor Lawrence, 292 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. He had 1 rushing touchdown. Travis Etienne had 17 carries, 149 yards, and 2 touchdowns himself. And number 1 Clemson, 42. Number 7 Miami, 17. And, pretty much Miami had a good little run, and they still got a nice season going for them, but they're just not there at Clemson's level yet, and that's okay. Not many. There's not many universities that are. Clemson is kind of on their own little universe right now. That really only Bama and Georgia, which really as terrible as Bama's defense looked Saturday, I don't know if we're on that plane or not. I know offensively Alabama is, but defensively, I don't know if we could stop Granny Johnson right now. It was pretty bad. But now, want to go to the game of the week, or my opinion, the game of the week, Florida and Texas A&M. During my preview of the weekend, I said that Jimbo could not afford to get blown out. He really couldn't afford a loss. He was getting paid too much money to be Texas A&M's coach, to keep getting beat. He had just got beat by 28 by Alabama the week before. Yada, yada, yada. And they did it. Him, Kellen Mond, this is his most experienced team he's had at Texas A&M, but him and Kellen Mond, to me, there's something special between the two of them. He didn't really recruit Kellen Mond. Kellen Mond was already here when Jimbo came, but they bonded together, and he stuck with him. And there's something between those two. It's really cool that Jimbo could have, tried to recruit 100 different guys to replace him, but he stuck with Kellen. I kind of admire that. I think it's cool, especially today when you got guys coming in and just pushing people out of the way from previous coaching staffs. When it's all about now, 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 now. And what Jimbo and Kellen did, I just thought it was really cool. I think they were 13.5-point underdogs. Now, at home at Kyle Field, they did it. They never shied away. Let's see here. Now A&M's D, it wasn't great. It did just enough to keep them in. Now Kyle Trask, he was good for Florida. They didn't really stop him. He was 23 of 32, 312 yards and 4 touchdowns. They were Florida led 21-17 at halftime. Florida would go up 28-17. A&M would jump up 28-17 or 31-28 early in the fourth quarter. Florida would tie it at 31. Trask would then take a 38-31 lead with about 6:20 left in the fourth quarter. That's when Kellen Mond would answer back with an 81-yard touchdown pass to tie it at 38. Texas A&M would get the ball back, drive down, and kick the game-winning field goal with 2 seconds left to score the upset over number 4 Florida. And there you go. That's his first win over a top 5 team since taking the head coaching job at Texas A&M, and it's what he needed because the heat was really getting hot on his butt at Texas A&M, and it wasn't the Texas heat, it was the Aggie faithful. And rightfully so. He's getting paid a lot of money to be the Texas A&M coach, and they deserve a winner. Now, I don't want him to be too successful because I enjoy my team's perch on top of the SEC West, but you got to realize about what college sports are, and hey, they see Clemson, they see Alabama, they see Oklahoma, Texas. They see these schools winning and they want a taste of it. They've got the money, they're willing to spend it. They see LSU, they see Auburn, they see Georgia. They feel they're owed that. And when you fork out the bucks, you expect results. And Jimbo desperately needs this, but it's also great for Kellen Mond's legacy. He broke Texas A&M's passing touchdown record. He's pretty much written the Texas A&M passing records, rewritten them, and he deserved this win. And he deserves many more. And it's just glad to see a guy like Kellen Mond, who's been a class act. He, no matter what he's been through, all the, all the difficulties he's had through his college career, it hasn't been easy for him. It couldn't have been. But he's rode the ship. He stayed faithful to Jimbo. He hadn't entered the transfer portal and looked for easier or greener pastures. And not knocking people who do, but I still think it should be congratulated when people stay and do it the hard way. And Kellen Mond certainly has. And just hats off to him. To me, that's why I made him my player of the week in college football for what he did. And not just him, but running back Isaiah Spiller, who came from Clemson, transferred from Clemson. He had 27 rushes, 174 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He was huge in this game. But Kellen Mond was 25 of 35, 338 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Uh, Hats off to you, man. And he was my player of the week. That's my opinion, sports player of the week. Uh, Whatever that value is nothing. But hey, it means something to, at least I think it is. But anyways, to me, he was the player of the week in college football. My top five, I have, last week I had Bama jumping Clemson. This week I have Clemson back at number one after the way they dominated Miami. I started to put Georgia over Alabama. I figured they're going to play, so we're going to find out who's two. I've got Bama 2, Georgia 3, Ohio State. I'm not going to put anybody ahead of them past number 4. So until the Buckeyes play, they're going to be sitting at 4. And North Carolina jumps Notre Dame. I've got North Carolina at number 5. Got another great week of college football over, but another one coming up this weekend. Like I said, we've got the Dogs in the Tide. Kirby Smart coming to Tuscaloosa for the first time since he left to take the Georgia job. So it's going to be interesting, nevertheless, to see. Saban's now 21-0. This will be the third straight week he's went against a former assistant. So we're going to see what's happening. It's also a week before his birthday. Actually, 2 weeks before his birthday, Nick Saban. But we'll have plenty of time to get into that one next week. I've held y'all up long enough. I do appreciate y'all joining in, and y'all take care. God bless. Peace.